There is a rule Machiavelli understood long before modern men began explaining themselves into irrelevance. It is not written as a commandment, and it is never spoken openly, yet it governs every interaction where power is silently negotiated. The rule is simple in form, but brutal in consequence. The moment a man reveals his inner motives, his uncertainties, and his emotional calculations to a woman, he gives away the very leverage that made him compelling in the first place. Most men do not lose women because they are cruel, indifferent, or incapable of love. They lose women because they talk too much about themselves in ways that remove mystery, dissolve authority, and invite judgment rather than respect. They believe honesty means transparency, and transparency means safety. Machiavelli would have laughed at this assumption because he knew something modern culture refuses to teach men. Power does not survive exposure. When a man explains himself constantly, he is not building intimacy, he is placing himself on trial. Every justification becomes evidence. Every emotional disclosure becomes a data point. Every attempt to be understood quietly teaches the other person how to predict him, how to manage him, and eventually how to dismiss him. What begins as vulnerability ends as loss of position. Machiavelli observed that people do not respond to what is said as much as they respond to what is implied. A man who feels the need to clarify his intentions announces that he fears being misunderstood. A man who over-explains his loyalty reveals that he is worried it might be questioned. A man who insists on being seen as good signals that he is unsure of his standing. None of this needs to be stated explicitly for it to be felt. Women, especially perceptive ones, do not consciously dissect these signals. They register them instinctively. Something shifts when a man begins narrating his inner world without restraint. His presence feels lighter, less anchored, easier to influence. The polarity that once existed quietly fades, not because she planned it, but because the structure holding it together was dismantled piece by piece. The dangerous misunderstanding men fall into is believing that being emotionally accessible guarantees emotional security. In reality, it often produces the opposite effect. When everything about a man is visible, there is nothing left to discover. When his intentions are laid bare, there is no tension. When his emotional reactions are predictable, there is no gravity pulling her toward him. Machiavelli taught rulers to be legible in action but opaque in motive. He understood that authority depends on controlled visibility. The same principle applies here. A man should be clear in his direction, consistent in his behavior, and firm in his boundaries, but never fully readable in the emotional mechanics driving those behaviors. The difference between confidence and insecurity is not volume, but restraint. This does not mean deception, it means discipline. It means understanding that not every thought deserves expression and not every feeling needs translation. The modern man has been trained to believe that speaking everything aloud is healthy, yet Machiavelli would argue that unfiltered expression is not health, but weakness masquerading as virtue. Consider how attraction often begins. It is rarely born from a man explaining what he wants, how much he cares, or why he behaves a certain way. Attraction grows when a man's actions speak with coherence and his silence invites interpretation. The unanswered question is more powerful than the answered one. The pause creates weight. The unresolved space keeps attention alive. When a man reveals too much too soon, he removes the woman's role in discovering him. He turns himself into a completed puzzle rather than a presence that unfolds over time. This is why men who say everything feel safe but unexciting, reliable but unremarkable. They confuse comfort with desire and are shocked when one fails to produce the other. Machiavelli warned against this in political terms, but the psychology is identical. A ruler who exposes every strategy loses deterrence. A general who announces every move invites resistance. A man who reveals every emotional reaction forfeits unpredictability. And unpredictability is not chaos, but leverage. There is another layer to this rule that men often miss. When you reveal your deepest motivations, you do not simply inform, you equip. You give someone the tools to push, test, and manipulate you, even if they never intend to do so. Knowledge creates asymmetry, and asymmetry always reshapes power. This is why some men notice a shift after opening up completely. The respect subtly erodes, the tone changes, the dynamic becomes flatter. What they interpret as emotional closeness is often the beginning of emotional demotion. The woman does not become cruel, she becomes less impressed, less careful, less invested in maintaining balance. Machiavelli would not tell men to become cold, but he would insist they become selective. He understood that strength is not silence, but measured speech. A man should reveal his values, not his vulnerabilities. He should express direction, not confusion. He should demonstrate care through action, rather than verbal reassurance. The man who keeps certain things private is not hiding, he is preserving structure. He understands that intimacy is built through shared experience, not emotional exposition. He allows trust to develop through consistency, not confession. He remains grounded in himself rather than seeking validation through disclosure. What women respond to at a deep level is not a man who explains why he is strong, but a man who doesn't need to. His presence feels settled. His reactions feel chosen rather than reactive. His silence does not feel empty, but deliberate. This creates safety of a different kind, one rooted in stability rather than transparency. Machiavelli knew that people follow those who appear internally governed. A man who cannot contain his emotions communicates that he is governed by them. A man who chooses when to speak and when to remain silent communicates mastery. That mastery is felt long before it is understood. This rule does not mean emotional starvation or emotional cruelty. It means timing, context, and proportion. It means realizing that intimacy deepens when information is earned, not dumped. It means accepting that mystery is not manipulation, but natural byproduct of self-possession. In the end, the cold rule is not about women at all. It is about self-respect. A man who knows himself does not rush to explain himself. He trusts that his actions will speak clearly enough. He understands that being fully seen too quickly diminishes the value of being known at all. Machiavelli would remind you that power is rarely seized aggressively. It is usually surrendered voluntarily by those who cannot tolerate silence, uncertainty, or restraint. The man who reveals everything does not lose because someone takes from him. He loses because he gives away what should have been protected. And the moment he learns to stop doing that, the entire dynamic changes, quietly, decisively, and without announcement.